Chapter 191, Slaying the Empty Green Beast, First Meeting Jiang Yueyao. This means that this ferocious beast most likely possesses a time talent. Think about it. Chumo's face was filled with disbelief. It's a time gift. Enough to be one of the two supreme talents alongside the spatial talent. Only, the spatial talent can still be traced, especially in some canonical books there are records of ferocious beasts capable of mastering space, such as the skybreaking white weasel and so on. However, the time talent was unheard of by Chumo. And now, it was to see one in person. And, for all the horrors of the gift of time, he had witnessed it with his own eyes. This ferocious beast was only at the early 7th level of the realm, yet it was able to crush two King Realm powerhouses, and even that middle King Realm elder was defenseless in front of him. If I were able to obtain this time talent, it would certainly increase my strength greatly. Even if I were to face a King Realm powerhouse with a special talent, it would be enough to be pleasantly unafraid. Thinking of this, Chumo could not help but show a touch of ecstasy in his eyes, but then he frowned. This ferocious beast possessed the gift of time, and the ability it had mastered was very special, seemingly able to slow down time, causing the opponent's actions to slow down. Although his strength was stronger than this ferocious beast, I'm afraid that it would be somewhat difficult to suppress it head-on. Looks like we can only try the Great Diffusion Divine Light. Chumo thought darkly. It just so happened that the Great Diffusion Divine Light mysterious code had already broken through to the second layer, and he also wanted to test what level the Great Diffusion Divine Light's power had reached nowadays. I'm still too greedy. At this very moment, Jiang Yueyao's heart was filled with regret in the face of this empty green beast that had mastered the gift of time. She had only come here this time to explore a chance she needed. Originally, the chance was already in her hands, and she could completely return directly to the Zhonghai super base, but it turned out that on the way, she discovered the Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid, a treasure that could allow one's talent to be disciplined to get a boost, so she wanted to get her hands on it and collect it under her greed. Results. Instead, he encountered the guardian spirit beast of the clear elemental Earth Heart Liquid, a King-grade Empyrean beast that had mastered the gift of time. The empty green beast was a very cherished ferocious beast, born and bred to master time. Any one of them has a very terrifying strength. When she came out this time, she had a king-level guard with her, plus more than 10 attendants who were all at the 8 desolate exalted realm, but when faced with this empty green beast, all of the attendants at the 8 desolate exalted realm were instantly killed without the slightest bit of resistance. Her guards, who stopped to fight with the beasts in order to buy her time to escape, are now dead. Now, this ferocious beast is catching up again. Although her talent was very high, in the end, she had only just broken through to the King Realm. Facing such a terrifying ferocious beast, she was simply no match, and at this moment, although she was struggling to hold on, she could no longer hold on for much longer. The thought of his imminent death. Jiang Yueyao couldn't help but have her teeth clench her lips, and a look of despair spread across her face with it. She doesn't want to die here. And it was at this time. Roar. The empty green beast let out a loud roar and an invisible ripple spread out steeply. Then Jiang Yueyao realized that there was a force lingering on her, causing her mind to slow down a bit, and even her figure's speed also slowed down a lot, and that's when the empty green beast pounced, that huge claw descending from the sky and looking to land on her head. The moment. Jiang Yueyao couldn't help but subconsciously close her eyes. However, Kiki. The imagined pain did not fall on the body. Instead, the empty green beast steeply let out a hiss of pain. Jiang Yueyao subconsciously opened her eyes. Immediately, he was stunned to find that this originally still imposing air green beast in front of him, at this moment, he was actually grimacing, holding his head with both heads, rolling on the ground, seemingly suffering from an extremely terrifying and heavy injury. This scene in front of her had yet to bring Jiang Yueyao back to her senses. Spin. She then saw that a figure quickly flew in from the distance. When the figure was still halfway there, he only saw that man's hand waving, and a very hidden golden light flew through the void, almost in a flash. Next moment, that golden light drilled into the empty green beast's mind, causing the latter to hiss miserably once again. What kind of tactic is this? Looking at this scene, Jiang Yueyao's heart trembled. The person who suddenly appeared was naturally none other than Chu Mo. At this moment, he had already arrived in front of the empty green beast. Seeing the other party lying on the ground and hissing in pain, he directly drew his sword out of the sheath sound, and immediately a red-colored blade light like a pizzicato cut through the sky, and chopped towards its head. The empty green beast was in a lot of pain though. However, after Chu Mo's saber chi appeared, he still felt the threat of death, so he immediately endured the pain and unleashed his time-slowing ability. Buzz. Accompanied by a tremor of space, a ripple was born, causing the speed of the autumn killing blade's fall to steeply slow down only. Right now, Chu Mo was only a few meters away from the empty green beast, and even if he was slowed down by time, he could only block it for an instant. Next moment, the long blade fell completely. Along with the dull sound of a knife penetrating into the flesh, large streams of blood flew, and a head shot up into the sky, then fell to the ground, no longer moving. Jiang Yueyao was completely dumbfounded. There was even a subconscious flash of disbelief in his eyes. This ferocious beast that had brought her to the end of her rope had actually been decapitated by a sudden martial artist just like that? And she could clearly perceive it. This suddenly arrived martial artist was only at the 8 desolate exalted realm. How is that possible? One must know that she was also enough to be called the topmost genius within the Zhonghai super base, but facing this empty green beast that controlled the gift of time, she could only flee, and was even forced into a desperate situation, and an 8 desolate exalt was actually able to cleanly kill him. Such strength and talent was simply unbelievable. Jiang Yueyao could hardly believe her eyes, so much so that her entire body froze directly in place. Phew. After killing the empty green beast, Chu Mo couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Although the earlier beheading of this 7th-level ferocious beast seemed very clean, Chu Mo was extremely nervous. This was because once he used the Great Diffusion Divine Light at the wrong time and thus was discovered by this ferocious beast, it would likely result in him being caught in an extremely passive situation, as well it is certainly not life-threatening. However, if one wanted to cut it down, the difficulty would be much higher. Good on. Everything went well. Looking at the corpse of the empty green beast, Chu Mo did not hesitate in the slightest and directly received it into his carry-on space. When this is done, a wave of excitement flooded his heart. Though the gathering spell had just been used up and waiting for a refresh would still take a month. But as soon as the body arrives, it's entirely possible to wait a month and make a collection. Sessions. He'll get the time gift. Just as Chu Mo was happy inside, at this moment, Jiang Yueyao also finally came back to her senses. As she looked at Chu Mo, she couldn't help but show a radiant color in her eyes. Just at the realm of an 8 desolate venerable, to be able to decapitate a king-level Empyrean beast, this person has definitely broken the limits of the physical body, and has definitely forged a flawless Dao foundation. With such a talent, even within the Zhonghai superbase, those who are able to do so are rare and rare. If the news gets back, I guess even father will be surprised by it. The thought of it brought a surge of befriending to her heart after all. With a talent like that, if it didn't die young, it would definitely become a strong person in the future. Thinking of this, Jiang Yueyao immediately walked over and saluted. "Thank you for your help, otherwise I would have died here today. I still don't know what your name is, so when I return to the Jinling Big Base, I will definitely thank you." "You're welcome. It's just a show of hands." Chuma waved his hand and said in a good mood. After saying that, he asked, "My name is Chummer, what about you?" He looked at the woman in front of him, who herself was at the King Realm cultivation level, and there were also King Realm powerhouses escorting her, so he thought that her identity and status were not ordinary in the Zhonghai super base. He was about to enter the Zhonghai super base and was still a bit unfamiliar with the area, so he wanted to make some friends. "My name is Jiang Yueyao," the woman said. After the two of them informed each other of their names, coupled with the fact that both of them had befriended each other and knew each other, they quickly warmed up. There was a bit of small talk. Thinking about the colorful flash of light when they were fighting earlier, Chu Mo couldn't help but ask curiously, I saw earlier that this ferocious beast had been chasing after you. What in the world happened? Ah. Words. Jiang Yueyao couldn't help but sigh, and then recounted what had happened. At the end of her speech, she took out a copy of the jade bottle from her storage pouch. Please see, Mr. Chu, this is the Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid, a spiritual liquid that can only be born in a place where the earth veins converge, and after a martial artist swallows it, there's a certain chance that he or she can have the talent they possess elevated by one level. So it is. Tremor came to a realization. No wonder that ferocious beast was particularly furious, with the idea of not stopping until Jiang Yueyao was killed. I think it should be this Qing Yuan Dixian liquid. It has been guarded for a long time, in order to want to make their own time talent to a higher level, did not expect to be robbed, naturally, is a great rage. But this item could actually enhance talent. It was also a rather extraordinary treasure, and it also made Chu Mo's heart somewhat moved. But after thinking about it, he finally stopped the greed in his heart. Jiang Yueyao's identity and background was a big deal, so it was really unnecessary to kill and seize the treasure for the sake of a Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid after all. He was equipped with the gathering technique, and if he needed a certain talent, he could always decapitate a ferocious beast to obtain it. It was so that this kind of thing might be precious to other martial artists. But in Chummer's case, the value was greatly reduced. Jiang Yueyao was secretly sizing up Chu Mo when he took out the Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid, and found that although he was attracted to it, he instantly returned to clarity without any hint of greed, and his heart was suddenly in awe. A talent this strong would have been a rare find. What's even rarer is that the character is also so high and pure. Such a martial artist is definitely worthy of deep friendship. She thought darkly in her mind. Chapter 192 Arrival at the Zhonghai Superbase. Chu Mo didn't know that he had already been labeled as a person of high moral character in Jiang Yueyao's mind. The two climbed into conversation for a while longer. Jiang Yueyao then said, Brother Chu, I plan to return to the Zhonghai Superbase. What are your plans? I'm ready to go over there too. Chummer said. Since that's the case, then why don't we pair up and go back together? There's still a short distance on the road for this trip, so if we go forward together, it'll be safer as well. Jiang Yueyao invited. It's fine, except that I'm coming from the Jinling Big Base to the Zhonghai Super Base this time, and I'm also bringing my family and disciples with me. They're all not far away, so I'm going to go and pick them up first. Chummer said. Brother Chu is actually not a martial artist from the Zhonghai Super Base? Hearing Chu Mo's words, Jiang Yueyao completely froze. She had always thought that Chu Mo was a disciple taught by some powerful person in the Zhonghai Superbase, otherwise, it would be impossible for him to possess such strong strength and talent. But what did she hear at the moment? Chu Mo was actually a big base martial artist? The large bases are much more scarce than the super bases, both in terms of martial prosperity and cultivation resources, and it's difficult to cultivate even King Realm martial artists. And this brother Chu, to actually be able to possess such a strong strength in a place like that, just how heaven-defying is his talent? Is it Morning Star level, or above Morning Star level? One thought. Jiang Yueyao couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air in her heart. A touch of unimaginable shock also showed in the eyes that looked at Chu Mo. What's wrong? Looking at Jiang Yueyao's eyes, Chu Mo said with some doubt. No, nothing. Jiang Yueyao came back to his senses and said, since Brother Chu still has a family, then let's pick up your family first and go back together. Trummer nodded. He then took Jiang Yueyao and flew towards the place where the Sky Rock was staying. And as Jiang Yueyao followed behind Chu Mo, the shock in her heart had already reached the extreme. But what she doesn't know is this. And that's just the beginning. Soon. The two had then arrived on the skyrocket. Seeing Chu Mo return safely, Chen Shiwei couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. At this time, when he also saw Jiang Yueyao, who was following behind Chu Mo, he couldn't help but show a touch of searching color in his eyes. Shiva, I'd like to introduce you. Trummer introduced them to each other. Ms. Jiang. Chen Xia nodded slightly and said with a clear and cold temperament. Hello Sister Jiang. Li Yue and Li Xuanji's siblings were also well behaved. But the siblings, however, were both a little puzzled. This Sister Jiang, although she was very good-looking and her cultivation looked strong, she just seemed to have a somewhat dull spirit for some reason. Could it be that this beautiful sister has some bad intelligence? The siblings thought so. When he once again looked at Jiang Yueyao's gaze, he couldn't help but bring on a touch of regret. Jiang Yueyao naturally didn't know what Li Yue's siblings were thinking. At this moment, the reason why she was frozen was because she was completely shocked by these few family members of Chu Mo. She could hardly believe the scene she saw before her. First was this woman with a cool temperament named Chen Shiwei, who seemed to have a very close relationship with Chu Mo. Jiang Yueyao could clearly feel that this icy coldness in her body seemed to originate from some kind of powerful physique. It just seemed to be lurking deeper, making it impossible for her to accurately judge it. But Li Yue and Li Xuanji, she could clearly tell. These two, all of them, were peerless heavenly prides with supreme talent. Coupled with the beast pet she was in at the moment, she could also clearly sense that it was a raptor that possessed the bloodline of the golden-winged roc. Even within the Zhonghai super base, peerless heavenly pride is very rare, and now we actually see 4 of them at once. Could this be that I'm in a dream world, or is today's heaven's pride already so worthless? The shock in Jiang Yueyao's heart had reached a point of no return. She asked herself that her talent was considered top-notch in the Zhonghai super base. But at the moment, while facing these 4 people, a strong sense of frustration arose in his heart. What in the world is this group of people all about? The golden-winged roc was fast. After flying for another afternoon until evening, Jiang Yu looked into the distance and spoke. The Zhonghai super base has arrived. Words. Chu Mo stood up and stood with his arms folded, his gaze solidly fixed in the distance, only to see that at the end of the line of sight, at the location of the skyline, there was a vast and boundless huge city that could not be seen at a glance, slowly appearing in front of the eyes. This base, to be more than 10 times more massive than the large base in Jinling. Moreover, above the sky, all kinds of flying boats and airships stayed everywhere, and from time to time, there were quite a few flying boats and airships coming and going, either breaking through the air and leaving, or mooring in the positions that were specially docked for flying boats. Each flying boat is full of technology, as if it is a spaceship, which brings a deep shock to people. Looking at the scene in front of him, whether it was Chu Mo or Chen Shiwei, as well as Li Yue and Li Xuanji's siblings, they all froze in place, with an extremely shocked expression on their faces. Is this the Zhonghai super base? I don't know how long it took to pass, but Chu Mo finally turned back to the country, took a deep breath, and murmured, the laws of the Central Sea super base are strict. Alien flying boats and beast pets must be registered, let me take you there. At this point, Jiang Yueyao spoke. That would be a pleasure. Chummer said. You're welcome. Jiang Yueyao smiled, then she led Chu Mo and his group to drop down and arrived in front of a tall building at the gate of the base. At the entrance of the tall building stood a group of stationed martial artists, each with the cultivation of a 4 directions town general, and the leader was even an 8 wastelands exalted. The moment these martial artists also saw Chu Mo and the others, and originally did not pay any attention to them, but then they saw Jiang Yueyao, and immediately their faces changed, and they hurriedly walked over and respectfully saluted. Greetings, miss. You guys know me? Jiang Yueyao asked. The martial artist at the head said respectfully, my subordinate is a martial artist from the residence, so naturally I know miss. Hearing this, Jiang Yueyao nodded slightly and said, these are my friends, they just came from the Jinling big base and want to settle in the Zhonghai super base, you take us to go through the relevant formalities. Hear that? This martial artist glanced at Chu Mo with considerable surprise, as if he didn't expect him to be able to become friends with Jiang Yueyao. However, he didn't say anything more, but promised and led Chu Mo and the others to the front of the tall building. Entry Status Processing Hall. The front of the tall building has a sign like this. This was the place where the Zhonghai Superbase specialized in level and identity verification for foreign martial artists. Originally, there were martial artists who wanted to enter the base lining up in front of the tall building, forming a long line. However, because there was a patrolling martial artist leading the way, so they walked straight in. All the way. There were constantly staff members saluting Jiang Yueyao. Even Chu Mo noticed that there was a King Realm powerhouse who had a look of respect on his face when he saw Jiang Yueyao. This made Chu Mo feel more and more in his heart that this person's identity was unusual. Soon, they had then entered the third floor. Several staff members who had already gotten the news stayed here respectfully, specializing in Chu Mo's registration. This lord, even though you are a friend of the lady, according to the rules of the base, there is still a need for identity registration and verification, please understand. A staff member said to Trummer. Chummer naturally showed understanding. Then it was time to register his name, origin, and the purpose of his visit, as requested by the staff. After some maneuvering, the staff member said, Lord Chu Mo, your file has been recorded, and in accordance with the Zhonghai Superbase's regulations on the entry and exit guidelines for the foreign population, you will be issued a 3-year temporary certificate of residence, and during this 3-year period you can freely enter and exit the Zhonghai Superbase. However, before the certificate of residence expires in 2 years, if you want to continue to live there, you need to replace it as soon as possible, and at that time, you only need to come to me to replace it. Otherwise, once discovered by the city's guards, they will easily be expelled as black households. Staff admonished in accordance with the ordinance. Instead, upon hearing this, Chummer spoke up, I want to go straight for a certificate of permanent residence. Proof of permanent residence? Hearing this, the staff froze and subconsciously said, Lord Chu Mo, there are only 2 ways to obtain a permanent residence certificate. One is to be recruited by a major power, and the other is to have the potential to. I know. Chu Mo said, I've already checked the conditions before coming here, and I've attached myself to all the requirements of the Zhonghai Superbase, so I want to apply for a permanent residence certificate. In addition, not only myself, but also the people around me, all of them need to apply for it. The staff froze, then couldn't help but subconsciously glance at Jiang Yueyao. Although the Zhonghai Superbase did have this one regulation, over the years, the number of martial artists who had obtained a permanent residence certificate each year was very few, adding up to no more than 10 a year, do what Chummer said. Jiang Yueyao said. Compared to the incredulous staff, Jiang Yueyao clearly knew that Chu Mo's strength was very strong, and thus was not surprised that he was able to obtain a permanent residence certificate. Besides, she could also take this opportunity to see just how far Chu Mo's talent was located. Okay. Lord Chu Mo, the machine for testing talent and strength is located on the 5th floor, let me take you there. The staff said. Thanks a lot. Trummer nodded. The group was quickly led by the staff to the 5th floor. Entered into a hall. This is where talent and strength are tested. A King Realm appeared and first saluted Jiang Yueyao, then said to Chu Mo, I'm sure you already know the conditions for wanting to obtain a permanent residence certificate, so I won't say any more about it. You'll need to undergo a bone age test, and then a talent or strength test. As he spoke, he led Chu Mo to a machine. This is the machine that detects bone age and can accurately bring out your true age. Trummer looked away. Noticing that the machine was similar to the one used to test for talent, he walked up to it after a quick glance. Soon, accompanied by a wave of light sweeping up and down Chu Mo's circumference, the results came out after a few minutes, 24 years old and age appropriate. Next up is a strength or talent test, you can choose either one. Of course. Speaking here, this King Realm martial artist laughed, if you choose both, and if both of these items are attached to the standard after testing again, you will be able to obtain a reward from the Zhonghai Superbase. Chapter 193 Obtaining Rewards, Jiang Yueyao's Invitation. Reward? Chu Mo's heart stirred and he couldn't help but ask, can I ask what kind of reward it is? The Zhonghai Superbase specializes in rewarding potential martial artists with a set of detached villas located in the core area of the base. In addition to that, every year, they can also receive the cultivation resources gifted by the base, plus the right to explore some of the secret realms and places of opportunity. The King Realm martial artist said even the right to explore the secret realm and the land of opportunity? Trummer was a bit surprised. Sure. Zhonghai Superbase holds quite a few secret realms, although the vast majority of them are held in the hands of major powers, but they alone can't occupy all the spots, so they will often open out some spots to go and invite the base's prideful martial artists to participate. Firstly, it's to make friends with the Heaven's Pride martial artists, and secondly, it's also to enhance the overall strength of the martial artists within the base. After all, our human race is still in a weak position so far. The King Realm martial artist explained. Hearing this, Chuemo nodded. He hadn't thought that the strongest people in the Central Sea Superbase were actually all so big-picture minded. But if that was the case, maybe he could fight for it. With this in mind, Chuemo asked, then if you want to obtain these, what standards should you meet? Those who are within 60 years of age, possess 1 transcendent grade talent or 2 top talents, and have a strength of at least the middle stage of the 8 Wastelands exaltation will be rewarded. How about it, want to try something? The King Realm martial artist asked. I'm willing to give it a try. Chummer said. Yes. Getting Chumo's reply, the King Realm martial artist brought Chuemo to a strength testing machine. This is the latest super strength testing machine developed by the base. The highest strength that can be detected is the strength of the early stage of the King Realm. You can use all your strength to hit on it, and then the screen will be able to display the value of your strength, and as long as it reaches 2 million elephant strength, it will be enough. Trummer nodded in understanding. Then came the strength testing machine. With all your might? Chuemo thought darkly in his heart. With his strength nowadays, the strength of his physical body alone had already reached 1 million, and with a 400-fold increase, he was even stronger than an ordinary peak King Realm powerhouse. If he really used all of his strength, I'm afraid that he would be able to blow up this super strength testing machine with a single punch. That would be too shocking. Although Chuemo wanted to get the reward, he didn't want to be so out of the limelight when he had just arrived here. Therefore, he still decided to tighten up a bit. Just hit 5 million elephant powers. Thinking so, Chuemo didn't even pull out his sword and directly blasted up with his fist. Boom! Accompanied by a violent roar that came steeply, this strength testing machine immediately shook violently. A value then appeared on the screen. 5 million elephant powers. Not a bit more, not a bit less. Just 5 million elephant power. What a precise power, looks like you didn't put out your full strength. When the King Realm martial artists saw this scene, they couldn't help but be somewhat secretly staggered. Chuemo smiled and didn't say anything more. Seeing the situation, this King Realm martial artist didn't ask much. After all, everyone had secrets that belonged to them. Pass the strength test, next is the talent test. After he recorded the data, he went straight to another machine and said, this is the machine that detects talent, just run your talent and it will show your talent. Trummer still walked up. Sinking all the other talents down, just the fire attribute talent and the metallic talent were both running. Both of these talents are at the transcendent level, enough to reach the line of excellence, but without seeming shocking. Soon. On the machine, the relevant talent level is then displayed. There are actually 2 transcendent level cultivation talents. When the King Realm martial artists saw this scene, they immediately cried out in shock, and a touch of envy flowed from their eyes as they looked at Chuemo. That's a double transcendental level talent. In the future, when they reached the cave Heavenly King Realm, there was hope that they could comprehend 2 types of Upanishads, and their future would be far too much brighter than many King Realm martial artists who had only comprehended 1 type of Upanishad. Though the heart was envious. But he quickly came back to his senses, and after recording the data, he spoke, congratulations, all the tests have exceeded all the standards, and you have been rewarded with the Zhonghai Superbase. Please also wait a moment, I'm going to file you and apply for an identity certificate and a permanent residence permit. With that, he left. Chummer then waited right here. It didn't take long. He had then returned, while handing Chu Mo an identity card. This is your identity card in the Zhonghai Superbase. It contains your relevant information as well as proof of your assets. With this identity card, you can go to any store in the Zhonghai Superbase to spend and shop. As for the rewards you have received, they need to be submitted up for review and are expected to be implemented within 3 days, at which time they will be transferred directly to the bottom of this identity card of yours. Thanks a lot. Chu Mo put away his identity card and said, You're welcome. Seeing that Chu Mo's talent and strength were not weak, this King Realm martial artist also had the idea of friendship in his heart, so he deliberately climbed up and said, Let's add a friend, and in the future, if you encounter anything in the Zhonghai Superbase, or if you have any doubts, you can come and ask me. Yes. Chu Mo naturally agreed. He was new to the city, and it was naturally good to have such a local King Realm martial artist to inquire about. Soon after, Chu Mo felt a tremor coming from the identity card in his hand. With a light click, a 3-dimensional display appeared in front of his eyes, revealing that it was a martial artist named Wei Jiang who had applied to be added as an address book friend. Chummer clicked agree down straight away. This identity card, ID card, bank card, communicator, and many other functions in one. You can bind your identity by inputting your own breath and yuan power, and it can change into any shape according to your heart. Wei Jiang said. Chu Mo experimented, and soon transformed the identity card into a bracelet that was placed on his wrist, and when he operated it, he only needed to move his mind, and a 3-dimensional light screen would emerge, which was very convenient. And just the strength of the Chummer test. Qin Shiwei and Li Yuwei, as well as Li Xuanji, also successfully got their own identity cards. Come on, let's go into town. Jiang Yueyao said. At this time, Wei Jiang said, Brother Chu, I just transmitted a set of simple intelligence and information about the Zhonghai Superbase to you. You can take a look at it when you're free. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. We'll talk later when we're free. Many thanks to Brother Wei. Trummer nodded. Wei Jiang nodded again with the others and left the place. Leaving the entry identity processing hall, Chu Mo's few people entered the base. Into what the eye sees. One could only see that on both sides of the road, there were thousands of meters of skyscrapers everywhere, huge neon lights flashing on the streets, and a single martial artist walking on the streets, all of them exuding a powerful aura. There was no shortage of 8 desolate exalted and cave heavenly King Realm existences among them. Beyond that, Chu Mo also noticed that there were also many private Yuanli vehicles coming and going on the streets, and there was even public transportation and rail transportation, with many ordinary people traveling by bus Yuanli vehicles and subways worthy of being a superbase. It's really prosperous. Trummer lamented. Li Yuwei, Li Xuanji, and the 3 of them also looked around rather curiously, their eyes filled with a searching look. At this point, Jiang Yueyao came to Chu Mo's side and said, Brother Chu, now that you have successfully entered the Zhonghai Superbase, what do you plan to do next? Not yet. Chu Mo said, I intend to find a hotel to live in first, and then move in when the villa gifted by the base materializes, and then see what happens. He planned to take a stroll around the Zhonghai Superbase to get a feel for the place before making any plans. Hear that? Jiang Yueyao said, Brother Chu, why don't you just join our Extreme Martial School? Our Extreme Martial Hall is one of the major forces in the Zhonghai Superbase. There are quite a few King Realm powerhouses in the hall. There are even Battle God level powerhouses. If you join in, I can guarantee that you'll be able to get the best cultivation resources. Thanks to Ms. Jiang's invitation, only that I just came to the base and intend to look at the situation first. I don't want to join any forces yet. Chu Mo shook his head and said. Good thing too. Jiang Yueyao nodded and said, Brother Chu can seriously consider this, regardless of whether there are any other forces inviting you during this period of time. I can assure you that we, the Extreme Martial Arts Hall, can definitely offer you the best conditions. I'll give it serious consideration. Chummer said. Subsequently, Jiang Yueyao accompanied Chu Mo to open another inn and waited for him to settle down before deciding to leave. Before leaving, he didn't forget to add his friends with Chu Mo. Phew. Finally, I've gotten my ID card, so I can settle down here, properly, next. Inside the room, Chu Mo couldn't help but let out a light sigh of relief. After a brief rest, Chu Mo then tapped the stereoscopic screen of his identity card and read the file Wei Jiang had transmitted to him. The first thing was to introduce some of the journey of the establishment of the Zhonghai super base, which was roughly similar to what the Mo clan's oldest ancestor had recounted. The second is the address of the base, the facilities needed by various martial artists, such as the Formation Artist Association, the Alchemist Association, as well as the Martial Artist Supply Hall and the Martial Artist Shop's addresses, and so on. Noteworthy. Chu Mo also discovered that within the Zhonghai super base, there was actually a special building called the War God Tower. This kind of Battle God Tower had a total of 18 floors, and martial artists could enter the tower through their consciousness, and each floor they passed could receive the rewards granted by the Battle God Tower, and even if they died, they would not truly die. It was very similar to the martial arts tower belonging to the Divine Sword sect in that little leaf green sky mysterious realm that Chu Mo had previously entered. And according to the paper, this God of War tower was the strongest person from the Zhonghai super base, who, when exploring a certain side of the secret realm, carried out the buildings within the secret realm and reproduced them, and eventually constructed them one-to-one. I didn't realize that the technology of the Zhonghai superbase had all reached this point. Chu Mo was secretly a bit surprised. Chapter 194 Ranking of Forces within the base, moving into the Aurora neighborhood. And at the end of the document, there was also a ranking listing of the major powers of the Zhonghai super base. The first thing that caught his eye was the War God Palace. War God Palace. It was a neutral force formed by a human war god level powerhouse. Since the great change of heaven and earth, it was formed by the first generation of martial arts powerhouses and has developed to become the #1 force of the human race, and it is said that there is a presence of the War God's Palace in the top 10 superbases. On this side of the Zhonghai superbase was just a branch, manned by a powerful war god level powerhouse. The War God Palace specializes in recruiting human pride and outstanding martial arts masters to cultivate successor martial artists for the human race, and as long as they can be recognized, they will be recruited into the War God Palace and be carefully cultivated. Even if the talent was really amazing and could pass the examination of the War God's Tower and be recognized as a supreme heavenly pride, there would also be a war god who would personally intervene and take him as a disciple, safe to say. In the Zhonghai superbase, the War God Palace not only had the deepest strength, it also had the highest status in the hearts of martial artists. Countless martial artists dreamed of being able to join one of the War God Palaces, as it represented an endlessly brilliant future. Secondly, then it is the Church of Earth and Fire. This is a very mysterious force. The core executives inside each have high strength, but because they usually live in deep seclusion, so they are not noticeable. Wei Jiang guessed that this was most likely a force formed by the Earth Cave cavemen. It was only because his position was not really high up in the base either, so it was not certain. In third place was the Scattered Cultivators Union. The Dispersed Cultivation Alliance was not a clan power, but a power created by a group of dispersed martial artists who did not like to join clans and families. Any casual martial artist who joined into the alliance would be able to trade freely with each other for anything you needed, but only if you could afford to pay the price. The fourth-ranked power was called the Ultimate Martial Arts Center. It is a force created by a war god-level powerhouse. The development is very rapid, just less than 100 years. It has become a large top force in the Zhonghai superbase, under the command of a large number of strong, but also quite a lot of young martial artists. Favor. Noteworthy. The founder of the Extreme Martial School, that war god powerhouse, was surnamed Jiang. This war god surnamed Jiang couldn't be Jiang Yueya's father, right? No wonder her status within the base is so high. She actually has a war god level father. Chumhum secretly smacked his lips. Looking further down, There were some forces below the four top forces. There are also 7 or 8 in the forest. In the midst of this, Chu Mo also noticed the name of Tianya Pavilion. Taking a broad look around gave Chu Mo a general understanding of the Zhonghai superbase as well. It seems that the development of martial arts here is even more prosperous than I imagined, and the competition is also a lot fiercer than that of the Jinling Great Base. But the corresponding. This also sidesteps the fact that this place possesses countless chances. Here is the true stage for martial artists. Read this. Chu Mo could not help but show a flash of sharpness in his eyes. Day 2. Chu Mo had only just woken up from his seclusion when he felt the identity card that had transformed into a bracelet at his wrist vibrate slightly. Opening it up, he realized that it was the rewards that belonged to him that had already been issued and implemented into his name. It says 3 working days, and this is only the first day. Pretty efficient. Trummer smiled slightly. Then he looked at the address and found that it was located in the inner ring core of the base, a living community called Aurora. 0264 buildings. A glance at the route showed that it would take constant distance from their place to the Aurora neighborhood. The laws within the base were strict, only strong people above the King realm were able to fly, and although Chu Mo possessed the strength of the King realm, his apparent realm was only that of an 8 desolate exalted. If they were intercepted in flight, it would be trouble after all. Therefore, Chu Mo opened his bracelet and called for a public yuan power floating car. Afterward, Chu Mo greeted Qin Shiwei and Li Youwei's siblings as they went downstairs, preparing to move to their new home. Just got to the intersection. The yuan power floating vehicle that Chu Mo had called was then already parked at the side of the road. Where do you want to go? The driver of the floating car, an ordinary man in uniform, asked absently. There wasn't much respect for Chu Mo in his words. From this, it could be seen that in the Zhonghai superbase, martial artists at the 8 desolate exalted level didn't have too high a status. Head for the Aurora neighborhood, Chummer said. Aurora neighborhood? Originally there was a rather unconcerned driver immediately hit a jolt, face showing a touch of shock color. Looking at Chu Mo, the body is subconsciously taut, stuttered and asked, You will not be living in the Aurora district, right? The Aurora neighborhood, despite its common name, was a big name in the entire Zhonghai superbase. This was because this was a villa area that the base had specifically allocated to the human race's pride. To be able to live here, one would either have already become a King realm powerhouse, pioneering for the human race, shedding blood and sweat, and accomplishing great feats, or one would be the future elite of the human race, with hopes of stepping into the King realm or even the existence of a god of war. This is where naming the neighborhood Aurora makes sense. And because of that, the ordinary people of the Zhonghai superbase might not be very respectful to other martial artists, but they were very respectful to the martial artists of the Aurora base, because they knew very well that ordinary people like them, who did not have the slightest value of force, were able to enjoy such a stable and peaceful life in this chaotic world, all because of these strong and proud people of the human race. Nice. Chu Mo nodded his head and said with a smile, he just moved over from the large base yesterday and was placed within the Aurora subdivision. Hiss. Hearing this, the driver couldn't help but take a deep breath of cold air. Moving in from the outside base, directly into the Aurora neighborhood, this showed that the talent was even more overwhelmingly strong, far more difficult than the martial artists within the base moving to the Aurora neighborhood after being certified by the War God Tower. After all, those large and small bases were lacking in resources, and those who were able to become Heaven's Pride were inevitably all dragons and phoenixes among people. And once they came to the superbase and were replenished with resources, they would soon be able to show off and become overwhelmingly strong. This kind of thing happened many times at the Zhonghai superbase. Thinking so, the driver's body subconsciously sat up straight, as if there was a war god powerhouse doing the job inside the vehicle, carefully maneuvering the Yuanli floating vehicle. Seeing this scene, Chu Mo couldn't help but laugh dumbly. But from this, it was also evident that the martial artists who could live in the Aurora neighborhood were all of high status. The journey was long, but the meta floaters were fast. Soon, The car had then driven to the entrance of the Aurora neighborhood. "Lord Martial Artist, I'll drive you myself." After the driver stabilized the vehicle, he attentively helped Chu Mo open the car door, and then stood still, his eyes full of respect as he watched Chu Mo walk towards the Shuguang district. The neighborhood is so large that you can barely see the edges at a glance. Inside are staggered single-family homes, each separated from each other to ensure views and privacy. It's just unbelievable. In a situation where all the surroundings were thousands of meters high buildings, inhabited by densely packed martial artists and ordinary people, in the core area of such a base, there was actually a piece of the district that covered such a large area, which was only cultivated with hundreds of single-family villas, and at the gate, there were also several martial artists standing. Among them, there were even 2 cave Heavenly King realm-level powerhouses. From this, it could be seen that the Zhonghai superbase really valued the pride of the human race. "This is a martial law area, no one is allowed to approach, please leave immediately." Just as Chu Mo was watching, a King realm martial artist walked over, his eyes full of caution. "Hello, the base rewarded me with a set of villas in the Aurora neighborhood, and I've come here to check in this time," Chummer said. "The base rewards a villa?" Hearing this King realm martial artist was first stunned, then shocked. "Could it be that your excellency is a celestial pride that has gone through an examination and all 3 items are located at the standard of excellence?" "Nice," Chummer replied. "I see, but in order to check in, you still need to verify the formalities. Please follow me, Your Excellency." The vigilance in this King realm's eyes eased slightly, then he brought Chu Mo to a post. Identity cards are recognized and procedures are checked. Soon, this set of processes is complete. Chummer's identity was also verified through. At this time, the King realm martial artist said with a smile on his face, "Congratulations, the condition verification has passed. You can bind your identity, and bind the identities of your closest friends and relatives as well, so you will be able to freely enter and exit the Aurora district in the future." Hearing this, Chu Mo then had both Chen Shiwei and Li Youwei's siblings bound, and a few moments later, all the formalities were all done. "Your villa is building 0264, let me take you there," the King realm martial artist said enthusiastically. "Thanks," Chu Mo said politely. Road. This King realm martial artist led the way while introducing Chu Mo and the others to the rules of the Aurora cell. Every single villa has a defense array, and martial artists who live here are easily not allowed to go to other areas except for the main road and the road leading to their own homes. Otherwise, they can easily be seen as snooping or misbehaving by the arrays within the other villas, and it's easy for misunderstandings to arise. Other than that, there aren't many other rules. The martial artists residing here are all human prides just like you. Normally, they are all working hard on their cultivation or going out to their bases to fight with the ferocious beasts, and only once in a while will they come back for a trip. By the way, the martial artists who live here will often organize auctions or trade fairs of a private nature, and only martial artists who live in the same Aurora neighborhood can participate. Turn around if you have a need, you can pay attention to it on your own, or you can add me as a close friend, so that when there is such a trade fair or auction in the future, I can contact you. Speaking here, he paused and smiled. "I'm the vice commander of the patrol guards of this district, and also the living butler of you Heaven's Pride martial artists, so if you have any needs and demands, whether it's for your life or cultivation, you can talk to me, and I can help you to liaise with the channels." Hearing these words, Chu Mo instantly understood that this person was equivalent to the role of a human network butler, or something like that. It was sent by the base specifically to handle the daily chores and cultivation needs for the martial artists within the Aurora base. An analogy if Chu Mo needed to use a certain material in his cultivation, but it was hard to find it in a short period of time, he could look for this person, and he would use his connections to search around and help Chu Mo find it. All in all, great use. So, Chu Mo also immediately thanked him and added his friend at the same time. As they exchanged words along the way, they soon had arrived at Villa 0264. This King Realm powerhouse, named Yang Shao, gave some more instructions and then left. The villa is huge. Chu Mo strolled around and found that both the strength of the building and the defense formations were very good, and even the facilities needed for a full range of cultivation, even the super tester, could not help but nod his head in satisfaction. The four of them then picked out their rooms separately, and purchased some more living items, which were categorized by Qin Shiwei. Do it all. This was how they were considered to have completely settled down in the Zhonghai superbase. Chapter 195 Jiang Yueyao's Heavy Gift, Qin Shiwei's Talent Transformation. Day 2 Chu Mo planned to go out for a trip and apply for beast pet certificates for the Skyrock and treasure-seeking bird. Only with this identification could Chu Mo have them active in the base in a bright and honorable manner. As for the little crow, because his bloodline was too terrifying, if it was displayed in front of people, it would easily be discovered that it was a pure-blooded golden crow, and once this news spread out, it would inevitably cause countless people to be shocked and covetous, and I'm afraid that even war god-level powerhouses would have to be covetous. Though for now, the war god powerhouses of the human race all had a supportive attitude towards martial artists, and he hadn't even heard of a certain war god who didn't hesitate to take action against martial artists under the war god, but Chu Mo couldn't put his fate in the hands of others. Not to mention, Xiao Wu will often fall into a deep sleep, and also prefer silence. Placed in the spirit beast bag will not feel dull, the usual time do not need to put out, so Chu Mo also dispelled the idea of helping it for the beast pet certificate only. Just as Trommer was just about to go out, the bracelet suddenly shook, and when he opened it, he realized that it was Yang Xiao who had sent him a message. Elder brother Chu, there's a venerable from the Extreme Martial Hall outside to look for you. Do you need me to release him? The Ultimate Martial Arts Center? Chu Mo was first stunned, then snapped out of it. Could it be that Jiang Yueyao has sent someone? With this in mind, he replied with a message, I also ask for elder brother Yang's help in releasing him. Okay. Yang Xiao sent a reply. At the gate, Yang Xiao closed the bracelet, and then said to the waiting martial artist in front of him with a smile on his face, Elder brother Chu has agreed to release the line. You can go in earlier, it was my duty. Some disrespectful places, please bear with me. This martial artist in front of him was only at the cultivation level of an 8 desolate exalted. However, when Yang Xiao faced him, he did not put on any King Realm powerhouse's stance, and even appeared to be quite warm. The reason why? It was because this person was a steward of the Extreme Martial Hall, and although his strength was not high, his status was not low. Even if it was Yang Xiao, he didn't dare to offend easily. Hearing Yang Xiao's words, this martial artist nodded his head slightly, and then he intended to step in. However, right at this moment, Yang Xiao said rather curiously, this brother, I don't know what you're doing here looking for old brother Chu? Could it be that you want to invite elder brother Chu to join the Extreme Martial Arts School? I'm not sure exactly. This martial artist said softly, I am also under the orders of the Pavilion Master and Miss, saying that I am here to deliver a gift. When he finished, he nodded his head before taking a step inside. Yang Xiao, on the other hand, was completely shocked at this moment. At the Ultimate Martial Arts Center, there was only one owner. That was the founder of the martial arts school, that war god powerhouse who stood at the top of the superbase in Zhonghai. And Miss is the daughter of this war god powerhouse. These two people were in existence that would make the entire base shake 3 times if they stomped their feet. But today, what did he hear? The Extreme Martial Arts Pavilion Master and Miss Jiang even personally ordered for someone to come and deliver the gift? What exactly is the identity of that Chu old brother? He couldn't help but have a look of horror on his face. I have come here on the orders of Miss and the Pavilion Master to deliver the gift. Inside the villa, the martial artist who had been quite cold in his attitude when he faced Yang Xiao earlier, at this moment in front of Chu Mo, he was wearing a compensatory smile and spoke respectfully while taking out a storage bag and placing it on the table. A gift? Chima was a bit surprised. Why are you giving me a gift? The lady said it was a sign of gratitude for the last time you saved her life. Hearing this, Chu Mo finally came back to his senses and waved his hand. saying, "That would have been just a show of hands, there's no need to labor so much." Miss said, "This gift, please do accept it, otherwise she will always be uneasy in her heart." This martial artist respectfully said, "Actually, originally, Miss and the pavilion master should have come in person, but Miss is currently just entering into a secret territory and is temporarily unable to take time off, while the pavilion master did not come in person, considering that his personal arrival might bring you some unnecessary trouble. However, the young lady has said that when she comes out of the secret realm, she will definitely make a personal visit to thank you, and the pavilion master has also invited you to definitely visit the Extreme Martial Arts Pavilion when you have the time to do so, and he will personally express his gratitude to you." Having said that, he bowed once more, then left directly without waiting for Chu Mo to refuse seeing the situation. Chu Mo smiled helplessly and could only accept the gift. Returning to a quiet room, Chu Mo sat cross-legged and opened this storage bag. It was discovered that the package actually contained a jade bottle, 30 portions of fierce beast blood, and a white golden card. A bottle of cleansing yuan earthly heart liquid, 30 portions of class 7 ferocious beast essence blood, and a bearer yuan stone card worth 3 billion mid-grade yuan stones. This gift is just too much. Chummer was taken aback by such a large court. The Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid needed no introduction. It could enhance a martial artist's cultivation talent, and the reason why Jiang Yueyao had been chased by the green sky beast in the first place was because of this item. And the 30 portions of grade 7 fierce beast essence blood were even more valuable. In particular, half of these 30 copies of the 7th level ferocious beast essence blood originated from 7th level medium ferocious beasts, and one of them came from 7th level superior ferocious beasts, making them even more valuable. It's simply not something you can buy with money. As for this bearer yuan stone card, it was more similar to a kind of bank card, with a balance of 3 billion medium-grade yuan stones in it, which could be used to spend and shop at any store in the entire base. Sure. Chu Mo could also transfer all these yuan stones to his name. In a nutshell, the combined value of these three items was at least over 5 billion medium-grade yuan stones. Converted down, it is equal to 500 billion lower-grade yuan stones. Chu Mo had previously dug up an entire large vein of minerals, and with the addition of medium-grade yuan stones and top-grade yuan stones, it was only about 300 billion. Now in the blink of an eye, he had gotten more wealth than all his worth combined one time. It actually caused an unreal feeling to arise in Chu Mo's heart. It was a long time before he came back to his senses. The Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid can raise a martial artist's talent for one of the 5 attributes by 1 level, up to the Morning Star level, but the chances of being able to raise it to the Morning Star level are too small, and I can rely on my gathering techniques, so the Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid isn't really of huge value to me, so I can give it to Xia Wei to use it in order to maximize its value. As for the 30 portions of Class 7 Ferocious Beast Essence Blood, half of them are from Class 7 lower class Ferocious Beasts, and each of these can provide me with 30,000 elephant power, while the effects brought about by the medium and upper classes are even greater, enough to increase my cultivation greatly in a short period of time. And with these 3 billion medium-grade yuan stones, plus my own yuan stones, the combined total can add up to over 5 billion, so perhaps I can shop around in the base's stores and see if I can buy a few gold-grade martial arts techniques. Chimo thought darkly his body technique Shadowless Phantom Steps was only at the silver level, and it was gradually becoming a bit too much for him to keep up with at the moment. The Xian Tian Battling Knife Chop, although located in the gold level, but only after raising the knife to play a great effect, in the daily killings, used only silver level windjacking thunder knife, just can also take this to change a new set of knife skills noon, after the meal. Chu Mo called Chen Shiwei to the side and then took out the Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid. Shiwei, this is the Qing Yuan Earth Heart Liquid, it has a chance to enhance one of the 5 elemental attributes of talent, drink it. Upon hearing this, a flash of surprise appeared in Chen Shiwei's eyes, but then she shook her head and said, "It will help you more, it's better for you to drink it. I've already had one, and this is specially reserved for you." Chimo found an excuse and said. Upon hearing this, Chen Shiwei was relieved. He then picked up the Qingyuan Earth Heart liquid and took small sips. The portion in the jade bottle wasn't much, so it was quickly finished by her. "What does it feel like?" Chu Mo immediately asked. "It feels like my body is warm, and the qi, blood, and yuan power in my body are active." Qin Shi closed his eyes slightly, carefully experiencing the changes within his body, and said softly. A few moments later, she steeply opened her eyes, and a flash of surprise appeared in her beautiful eyes. "I feel that my talent has been enhanced." The words were not yet finished. Her face suddenly changed abruptly and steeply, and at the same time an extremely cold aura came steeply from her body. It was a bone-deep cold. When it swept over Chu Mo, it made him couldn't help but subconsciously shiver. The entire quiet room, moreover, was instantly frozen. "This is..." Sensing this strange change, Chu Mo's face also changed abruptly. Thought there was some kind of accident. However, right about this time. He suddenly sensed that within Qin Shiwei's body, there was a mysterious energy that was gradually strengthening, as if it was about to break out of its shell. The scene. How similar it was to when Li Yue awakened the heavenly phoenix soul. Could it be that there is some kind of very special physique hidden within Xia Wei as well? Chumo thought darkly. Looking at Qin Shiwei's body, there was nothing bad, so Chu Mo also pressed on, intending to wait and see what happened. With time, the icy cold emanating from Qin Shiwei's body was getting colder and colder, and even had a tendency to completely freeze the entire villa and even this neighborhood. Fortunately, Chu Mo immediately launched his sword, evolving a blade domain that enveloped the entire quiet room, suppressing this icy coldness, and only then did it not spread out. But the power that had fallen silent within Qin Shiwei's body, however, was growing stronger with time. Finally, sometime later, buzz. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, suddenly countless rays of light swept out from Qin Shiwei's body, completely enveloping the entire neighborhood. That's not all. An extremely cold breath also rumbled between the outbreak of sweeping. In order to Qin Shiwei as the center, the formation of a violent ripple spread out, directly spread to 100 miles in a radius. The temperature plummeted wherever it passed. Sky. More than that, a frost floated up. Within 100 miles, it turned into a land of ice and snow. Such a vision immediately caused the martial artists within the entire super base to take notice, and for a moment, they all gazed over. Chapter 196, shaking the entire base, the 7 great war gods personally arrived. Inside the Zhonghai super base, somewhere in a towering pavilion, a woman with an enchanting figure, stunning looks, and a solitary and overwhelming aura was originally cultivating, but suddenly seemed to sense something and subconsciously opened her eyes. His eyes gazed at a certain area within the base, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Born with a yin vein, extremely cold body. I didn't realize that there was such a physique in this world. In the midst of murmuring, her body flickered, and she directly disappeared in place. In the meantime, in other places within the base, there were also quite a few breaths of terrifying existences that had opened their eyes and gazed at the villa where Chu Mo was located, and then, either in delight or surprise, they had their bodies flashed and disappeared in place. At this very moment, the visions in the sky became more and more terrifying. The frost that filled the area of 100 miles had already swept to a circumference of hundreds of miles away, almost encompassing the entire Zhonghai super base in its entirety. In the meantime, there was even a path of auspicious qi born out of thin air, bringing up 10,000 paths of haze and 1,000 streaks of auspicious qi. Within these brilliant haze lights, there was a subtle occasion of Taoism, all kinds of laws forming chains of order, Taoism divine light, crisscrossing across. And with the fall of the radiant light, the void even gave birth to golden lotuses, and a single heavenly flower fell down, bringing a strange fragrance to the nose, bright and prosperous. In an instant, the entire Aurora neighborhood became streaming with color and haze. It is daytime at this point though. However, such a vision spread far and wide, making it clearly visible to martial artists throughout the Zhonghai superbase. Seeing such movement, Many martial artists raised their heads at this instant, shock on their faces. What's this? What's this all about? Such a heaven and earth vision, could it be that some heavy treasure has come out? Look at that direction, it seems to be the Aurora Cell. Could it be that a certain talented martial artist from the Aurora Cell has awakened a transcendent talent? The haze comes out of the world, the void gives birth to golden lotuses, and the smallpox falls to earth. What kind of talent is this to cause such a vision? Incredible, just incredible. Countless people looked up to the sky. Each of them looked blankly at the large vision in the distant sky, and each of them was either shocked and disoriented, or exclaimed in unimaginable astonishment. The entire Zhonghai superbase was instantly bustling with activity. Countless people were talking and even rushing towards this side. And at this moment within the Aurora base, many martial artists who were originally in seclusion within their own bases were even more startled at the first moment. They were so close that they were naturally able to clearly perceive where this aura came from. Villa 0264? Newly moved martial artists? Terrifying. For a talent to awaken and be able to cause such a great commotion, what kind of demonic talent is this? Incredible. It seems that our Zhonghai superbase has seen another top heavenly pride. Look at this escaping aura, it looks like a frost attribute talent, it's really rare. Quickly go and find out who the new martial artist who moved to Villa 0264 is. Such a heavenly pride must be befriended. Many of the talented martial artists and powerhouses within the small area had made such decisions as their hearts shook. At the gate, Yang Xiao sensed the direction from which the breath came, and a look of having seen a ghost spread across his entire face in the first instant the scent came. He had already sensed that it was coming from within Chumo's villa. And unlike the others, Yang Xiao, because he had been in close contact with Chu Mo at that time, so when this aura came from him, he quickly discerned that it shouldn't be caused by Chu Mo. It's the female with the cool temperament beside elder brother Chu. He discerned it immediately. At that time, that female had been standing by Chu Mo's side, and seeing as they were quite close, Yang Xiao took that person as Chu Mo's wife or companion and did not dare to look at her more. But the woman's cool aura was fresh in his mind. How similar was it to the frosty cold that swept over us? That is to say, not only is elder brother Chu's talent amazing, but even Lady Chu, she's also a peerless heavenly pride? Read this. Yang Xiao immediately couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air, and a flash of horror appeared in his eyes. A single heaven's pride was already very shocking. And nowadays, surprisingly, there were two heavenly prides. No. Yang Xiao suddenly shook his head. If he remembered correctly, the young girl who was following behind elder brother Chu at that time seemed to be very young, but her cultivation seemed to have reached the Zhen general realm as well. When it was Yang Xiao, therefore his mind fell on Chu Mo, so he did not think deeply. But look back at this moment. How young that young girl was, yet she already had a Zhen general cultivation level, which was extremely terrifying when placed in the Zhonghai superbase. As for the teenager, it looks like even though he hasn't cultivated yet, his temperament is quite impressive, so I think he should be a genius as well. In that case, the four of them are actually all heaven's pride? Think about it. Yang Zhao's heart was in a state of shock in an instant, and then he associated it with the fact that both the owner and the young lady of the extreme martial arts school had personally sent gifts. Thighs? It definitely couldn't be a thicker thigh. If we can befriend them, we will certainly have endless benefits in the future. He decided immediately. Be sure to play nice with Trummer. Even if he couldn't become a close friend, he mustn't cross paths with Chumo. It's hard to know how long it's been. The aura emanating from Chen Shiwei's body finally began to gradually converge and eventually calmed down completely. A few moments later, Chen Shiwei finally opened her eyes and then saw Chu Mo standing in front of her with a face full of concern. This made her heart warm slightly. Well, is there anything out of the ordinary? Chu Mo immediately asked. Thanks for your concern, husband, I'm fine. Chen Shi shook his head slightly. Hearing this, Chumo was completely relieved and then asked, "Was that aura that emanated from your body just now an awakening of some sort of physique?" Husband guessed correctly. "I awakened the extreme cold body, making my control over frost even stronger, and I even comprehended a trace of the arcane meaning of frost." Speaking here, she stood up and solemnly said to Chumo, "Many thanks, husband. If you hadn't given me the Qing Yuan Earth Heart liquid, I wouldn't have had such a metamorphosis. Why should you and I be so polite to each other?" Chumo waved his hand, and a smile spread across his face. He also rushed to heartfelt delight at Chen Shiwei's metamorphosis. The two made small talk for a while. And just then, boom, 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 boom. Outside. Suddenly there was a shocking sound that resounded steeply in the sky, as if it was a muffled thunder. In the meantime, a terrifying aura spread out with it. Chumo could feel that the entire heaven and earth's yuan power had violently churned up with it. This is. Chumo and Chen Shiwei exchanged glances, then they walked out of the villa. Immediately. It was then seen that several tall figures actually appeared in the sky, and they were emitting an intense light, as if they were a great sun, hanging in the firmament. Majestic and sacred, with an aura of awe-inspiring inviolability. This is War God Powerhouse. 1, 2, 3. My God, a full 7 war gods have stepped forward. Aha! This is the God of War, this is the God of War. I was actually able to see the God of War with my own eyes in my lifetime. The God of War who suppresses all turmoil and stands at the top of the human race. Why would 7 war gods appear in unison? What are they doing? Inside the base. Countless martial artists saw the 7 rounds of figures hanging in the sky like a great sun, and each and every one of them were stupefied, with shocked and appalled colors in their eyes. This is the God of War. An existence that stood at the top of the blue planet's human martial arts. On weekdays, any one of them is the existence of a dragon. Each of them is since the time of the great change of heaven and earth all the way, just like walking on the earth like a god, and fierce beasts to kill, for human beings in exchange for today's right to speak. To this day, each and every one of them has a supreme position. Each and every one of them, their strength was strong to the extreme. It would be a great honor for an ordinary martial artist to be able to meet any of the war gods even in this life. And today, there were actually 7 of them straight away. So much so that it caused the hearts of countless martial artists to beat sharply, and an uncontrollable exuberance appeared in their eyes beyond that. On top of their excitement, a doubt suddenly emerged in their hearts. These 7 gods of war had arrived in unison, and what were their intentions? The answer, soon to be revealed. "Little girl, are you willing to join my disciple?" A grandiose voice resounded steeply in the middle of the sky. Accompanying the fall of this voice, the boundless 10,000 golden lights that escaped around a figure were all converged, and eventually a middle-aged figure with a stalwart appearance and a strong and unparalleled aura that seemed to be able to cut through the heavens and split the earth appeared. This is the Overlord War God? I didn't realize it was actually him. The Badian war god is my idol. 100 years ago, when there was a ferocious beast in the depths of the sea, the bastard heavenly war god traveled 100,000 miles overseas by himself to fight 3 Class 8 ferocious beasts comparable to the god of war, and in an unrivaled manner, he killed a Class 8 king beast on the spot, and then severely injured another one, while the remaining one fled in a panic, and didn't dare to come close to the coast for millions of miles within a few decades. It is said that the Overlord God of War is closed for cultivation, has not been present in front of people for decades, and today it is surprising that he has come out of the gate. The reason is just except the disciple? Hiss. Countless people couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cool air, horrified look spreading across their faces. However, what shocked them was yet to come. After the hegemonic war god opened his mouth, another voice sounded steeply. Badian Jr., although your strength is strong, it is ultimately too violent. It is simply not suitable for a girl to cultivate. This little girl's temperament and appearance are excellent, How can she cultivate your overbearing and unparalleled gun technique? Along with the golden light escaping, another old man's figure surfaced in front of the people. He looked at Chen Shiwei and said with a kind face, "Little girl, why don't you worship me as your teacher? The old man will pour out all he has and pass on your top mastery, and within 100 years, he will be able to make you ascend to the position of the god of war." Old man, with your three-legged martial arts, you're still guaranteeing someone to ascend to the position of war god within 100 years. I think you're delusional. As the old man's words fell, another figure appeared along with the voice. But it was an old crone. However, seeing her holding a walking stick, she first angrily rebuked the old man, then turned her head to Chen Shi and smiled. "Little girl, if you worship me as your teacher, I'll guarantee that you'll be able to defeat this filthy old bastard within 100 years. Chapter 197, 7 War Gods Robbing People, Worshipping Yuning Shuang. After the three showed up one after another and revealed that they wanted to take on Chen Shiwei as their disciple, the remaining 4 figures all showed up and wooed Chen Shiwei. "Little girl, join my sect and I'll give you the best resources and deepest background." Fart. Your power district kittens and puppies 3 or 2, and give people the deepest resources and background? Really big talk, little girl. I'm Qingyan War God, although only the war god of the Loose Cultivator Alliance, but alone, has not received any disciple. As long as you worship me as a teacher, no matter what you want, I will give you. Qingyan, you still have to be shameless? You cultivate a fire attribute technique, and this little girl's talent is completely opposite. Accepting her as a disciple is harming her. Little girl, I'm a heavenly sea battle god, possessing a water attribute talent, which is the closest to your cold talent. Why don't you just worship me directly as your teacher? Stop it all, you guys aren't qualified to teach her at all. I'm at the highest realm amongst the 7, I'm the only one qualified. With your old skeleton's eerie kung fu, you still want to take someone as your disciple. Aren't you afraid of scaring such a nice girl? One war god after another opened their mouths, wanting to compete for Chen Shiwei, and even going so far as to attack and reveal their old backgrounds to each other to others in order to achieve the goal of taking on a disciple. And such a scene. Immediately, the other martial artists' hearts and minds trembled wildly, experiencing a huge blow. Earth-shaking war god. Skeleton warlord. Resurrection war god. Burning heart war god. Qingyan war god. Heavenly sea war god. Heavens! There are 7 war gods. If I remember correctly, each of these several war gods are veteran war gods who have been famous for decades or even centuries. It is rumored that when the Green Flame War God was out exploring, he happened to come across a ferocious beast plotting to start a beast tide, and was directly enraged, and performed the Burning Sky Jedi, which actually directly burned 100,000 miles of dense forests, and turned millions of ferocious beasts into ashes. After the earth-shaking war god had just broken through to war god, he was attacked by a rank 8 ferocious beast, and as a result, he comprehended the divine ability in the battlefield and performed the 9 consecutive rings of hate, which lifted the earth, and that rank 8 ferocious beast was even killed alive by him. Each of them is a strong god of war, each of them has a legendary war record. The entire Zhonghai superbase, any one martial artist who wants to worship under their door is not available, but now they have to show up, just to compete for a disciple? Terrible. Just horrible. Their pupils contracted sharply, and they subconsciously exclaimed out in shock, obviously completely boiling over from the scene in front of them. It was no wonder that these war gods were so out of sorts. It was really Chen Shiwei's talent that was too strong. So much so that the heavens have sent down heavenly flowers, golden lotuses, and even revealed all the laws as a sign of universal celebration. What does that mean? It meant that if Chen Shiwei were to be taken in as a disciple, in time, a powerful war god disciple would definitely appear under his door. Though they are also war gods. But there was also a gap in strength between the war gods. And if Chen Shiwei was able to become a war god, his strength would definitely not be weak, which would be too great a benefit for them. Because of this, they're the ones who want to scramble at all costs. This also leads to, at this moment, for the Zhonghai superbase martial artists, usually rare to see the god of war level powerhouses, At this moment there are a full 7 are in the sky with each other cursing, and even about to evolve to the point of a big fight. And over the base, because of the change in the minds of the 7 war god powerhouses, there was also a sudden change in the wind and clouds, lightning and thunder, and a terrifying pressure crashed down like a Tarzan. It made the countless martial artists within the base all look ham-fisted, only feeling as if the sky was about to collapse. Well, let's just stop arguing amongst ourselves. Just at this time, the old crone holding a walking stick suddenly opened her mouth and said, "If we continue to argue like this, we won't be able to get a result, and we might even have to fight each other. How about this? Ask the little girl what she wants and see who she's willing to worship as her master, and as long as she decides, no one else shall be allowed to fight for it." The moment these words came out, the other 6 battle goddesses nodded as well. The resurrection war god is right, let's let the little girl decide who to worship. Right. The several war gods nodded, and then they all bet their gazes on Qin Shiwei. "Little girl, who do you intend to worship?" The resurrection war god said with eyes full of kindness. "Ground." At this moment, Chu Mo had completely failed to anticipate that things would actually evolve to this point. The 7 gods of war had actually visited here, wanting to take Qin Shiwei as their disciple. Feeling these 7 gazes, Chu Mo couldn't help but look at Qin Shiwei, realizing that at this moment, she was also a bit torn, seemingly having a hard time making a decision. However, right about this time, heaven and earth. A lingering aura came steeply. All of a sudden, the temperature of the entire large base became frigid in an instant. Because of the radical changes in the heavens due to the ups and downs of the 7 great war gods' minds, the rain that fell was also frozen into ice crystals in an instant, solidifying in midair. This is... Could it be the one at? She actually came herself? Isn't it rumored that she doesn't really care about that? After feeling this aura, the faces of the 7 war god powerhouses in midair abruptly changed, and a look of disbelief spread across their faces. Boom. Just as the 7 war gods were either in disbelief or shock in their words, at this moment, from afar, there was suddenly a ladder made of frozen frost spreading from afar. On top of this ladder walks a woman. Dressed in plain white gauze, her temperament is as cold as a fairy, and her appearance is even more beautiful. She looked languid, and her body revealed even less terror. However, the 7 war gods in the room, no matter who they were, did not dare to underestimate them. A flash of respect flowed from the eyes of the ever-brutal battleship god of battleship, then he bowed slightly and said respectfully, "Chi battleship of the Scattered Cultivators Alliance, welcome battleship god of Narrowly Frost." Next to it, the remaining 6 war gods also bowed and respectfully saluted in greeting at the superbase in Zhonghai. Other than under the war god palace, there were 3 top forces. They were the Earth and Fire sect, the Dispersal Union, and the Ultimate Martial Arts Center. Other than that, there were some great powers that possessed a war god, such as the Sky's End Pavilion. However, in addition to these forces, outside of the Zhonghai superbase, there was still a large force in the minds of countless martial artists and many war gods. That would be the Condensed Frost War God. The name is Moongel Frost. From a young age, he was an orphan, and then he was blessed by heaven and earth to become a martial artist, and rose all the way to become a King Realm powerhouse in just more than 10 years, and then he used another 30 years to step into the war god sequence. Although he hadn't joined any forces or formed any forces so far, he had become an unnoticeable presence within the Zhonghai super base just by relying on his own strength. Even a behemoth like the war god palace would easily not dare to provoke it. Even the palace master of the war god palace, when faced with Yuning Xuan, had to treat him with courtesy and did not dare to show the slightest bit of negligence inside the base. The other powerhouses, whether they were veterans or newcomers who had stepped into the god of war, were even more respectful in their salute. The reason why? It's because of Moon Ningxuang's amazing feats. In the second year of achieving the god of war, he slayed an 8th-level ferocious beast overseas. Zhonghai Super Base once had a heavenly rift out of control, and entered alone, freezing 100,000 miles of Earth with great aptitude, and suppressing hundreds of millions of beast tides with his own strength. Afterward, he traveled alone to the far north and killed the Great 8 upper-level ferocious beast, the blue-eyed heaven-swallowing bear. On the way back, he was ambushed by 13 Class 8 fierce beasts. Instead of falling, with an invincible and powerful stance, he killed 6 Grade 8 ferocious beasts, seriously injured 5, and only 2 ferocious beasts fled with their entire bodies in haste. Who knows where her limits are? No one knew to what extent her cultivation had reached. She was like a god of the world, with a dusty temperament and a worldly independence, standing proudly above the moon palace, not falling into the dust of mortals, and looking at the multitudes with cold eyes within the Zhonghai superbase. Many martial artists would privately discuss the strength rankings of the war gods. But no matter how it's sorted, the condensed frost war god, moon condensed frost, were all consistently located in the top 3, without ever wavering in the slightest. The moment this peerless woman with overwhelming strength and beautiful look swept through the surroundings with a pair of pretty eyes, and wherever she passed, whether it was a war god or an ordinary martial artist, all of them bowed their heads, not daring to meet their eyes. Eventually, her gaze landed on Chu Mo. A slight flash of surprise appeared in her eyes, but then she shook her head before landing on Chen Shiwei and speaking, "I am Yuning Shuang, would you like to worship me as your teacher?" A simple sentence, but it was like a thunderbolt that exploded in everyone's ears. Although there had already been some guesses about Yuning Shuang's intentions of coming here, and they were even mentally prepared. However, when Shockwave Moon Ning Shuang spoke these words, they were still inevitably somewhat shocked in their hearts. Yuning Shuang's strength was strong and unrivaled, but so far she had never taken on any disciples, and there were only a few female handymen and servants under her command, who were responsible for taking care of some chores for her. Over the past countless years, there was no shortage of young martial artists with decided talent who wanted to worship her, but no matter who they were, none of them ever entered her eyes. And now, it was actually the woman who was chosen. This showed that Yuning Shuang was incomparably optimistic about this girl's future, to the point where even her heart was moved. Shocked look. The 7 war gods all showed disappointment. With this condensed frost war god personally speaking, the outcome was almost already obvious. This female child with unparalleled talent should have no chance with them. Villa front. Listening to Yuning Shuang's words, Chen Shiwei's eyes grew brighter. She could feel that the aura coming from Yuning Shuang's body was very close to her, and there was no doubt that the other party's technique and path were also very compatible with her. This caused Chen Shiwei to be unmoved. She twisted her head and glanced at Chu Mo, a searching look in her eyes. Chu Hum nodded slightly. Seeing the situation, Chen Shiwei immediately stepped forward, looked at Yuning Shuang, nodded her head and said, "I am willing to worship you as my teacher." Chapter 198 True Martial Pavilion, Terrifying Price. The dust has settled. When Chen Shiwei's words fell, the other 7 god of war couldn't help but show a flash of disappointment, even though they had expected to eat a heavenly pride that would inevitably be able to grow into a battle god-level powerhouse as long as it didn't die prematurely had just left them. And at this moment, Yuning Shuang listened to Chen Shiwei's reply. A smile could not help but appear on the originally cold face. The cultivation of a war god powerhouse had long since reached an unimaginable level, and his every move could influence the celestial changes in the surrounding heaven and earth. At this moment, she displayed a smile, and affected by her mood, the surrounding heaven and earth was actually a few points brighter in an instant, and even the flowers and trees on the ground grew more vigorously. A breath of spring-like air washed over him. "Since you worship me, from today onwards, you are my only disciple." Yuning Fang said, "Yes, disciple Chen Shiwei, greetings to master." Chen Shiwei respectfully performed a salute of worship and said softly, "See this scene." Yuning Shuang nodded slightly, then her cherry lips gently opened, "Come with me now, so that master can impart your kung fu mastery." But Chen Shiwei, however, was a bit hesitant. Hearing this, Yuning Shuang first stared blankly, then seemed to understand what Chen Shiwei meant, swept a glance at Chu Mo, and laughed, "Don't worry, this time, it's only to take you to a place of cultivation to retreat to, and when you will be initiated into the Gongfu, then you can independently choose where to cultivate at that time. Even if it's still back here, there's no harm in it. Chen Shiwei then relaxed. Then after saying goodbye to Chu Mo, he followed Ju Ningfeng and left the place. When they're gone, the other 7 war gods saw that they had failed to accept their disciples and left one after another in disillusionment. The storm that arose in the Aurora neighborhood quickly calmed down. However, what happened here, quickly spread throughout the entire Zhonghai superbase, and even spread towards the other large and small bases in the surroundings. After all, what happened here today is just too shocking. A martial artist awakens a peerless talent, causing 7 divine dragon god powerhouses to step forward, and even in order to compete for this heaven's pride, the 7 god of war even went so far as to attack each other, to the point of having a huge fight. The final peaks and valleys. The condensed frost war goddess Xu Ningxuang had all personally descended and accepted him as her only personal disciple, and only then did the dust settle. But there's no doubt about it. Such news, however, was enough to make countless martial artists enjoy it and even lead to a good story. It was certain that at least for countless hours to come, this scene would become the most shocking memory in the hearts of many martial artists within the Zhonghai superbase. Aurora subdivision. Although Chen Shiwei had already been picked up by the condensing frost war god, other martial artists who lived in the same small area still rushed over, wanting to pay Chu Mo a visit. Their attitudes were earnest, and they all carried heavy gifts, and their words were all characterized by a sense of fellowship. Chu Mo naturally understood what they meant. It was nothing more than trying to find out about Chu Mo's identity, and more importantly, about Chen Shiwei's identity. Later, after learning that Chen Shiwei was Chu Mo's fiancé, envy flowed out of his words, and he praised Chu Mo for his good fortune and good luck. But Chu Mo was able to clearly see that after he spoke out about his relationship with Chen Shiwei, there were some martial artists who looked at Chu Mo with a touch of contempt in their eyes. In Trummer's mind, these people should be treating him like a gigolo. It was thought that he was able to live in the Aurora neighborhood purely because of Chen Shiwei. Sure, not everyone thinks so. For example, Yang Xiao, Wei Jiang, and the others clearly understood that Chu Mo was also a martial artist with his strong, overwhelming talent. But then there's no need to make a point of explaining any of this. And they don't make a big deal out of it. After all, it's too late for you to hug your own thighs, so how can you proclaim it on a wide scale and add competitors to yourself? In addition to the first day when the martial artists within the Aurora small area came to visit, Chu Mo received them after a bit. In the following period of time, there were quite a few forces that sent martial artists to visit, but Chu Mo asked Yang Xiao to help stop them and refused to see the guests. So 3 days later, the heat is always down. Chu Mo was also able to go out for a trip, first registering both the treasure hunting bird and the sky rock for the beast pet proof, and then did not go back, but instead went to the mall of the base. Zhonghai Superbase, inside a large shopping mall in the core area. This was the largest martial arts mall in the entire base, with hundreds of floors, and every floor had stores selling all kinds of resources used for martial arts cultivation. From martial apprentices to the cave Heavenly King realm, even the treasures needed by a war god could be found here. There is an extremely high fee to pay if you want to open a store here. After Chu Mo entered the mall, he could see that many shopkeepers' cultivation levels were at the level of 4 directions Shin generals or even 8 wastelands exalted masters, and there were even quite a few existences at the cave Heavenly King realm. There is also a huge display in the lobby on floors 1 through 3. There was a lot of information about selling treasures and buying treasures on it, and the contact information of the martial artist was added at the back, so anyone who was interested could contact the other party for face-to-face transactions. It's as simple and straightforward as the information about the number of trains at a high-speed train station. Chu Mo took a few glances and realized that there was no lack of gold-level martial arts and very precious treasures in these messages, and even the material essence blood of level 7 and even level 8 ferocious beasts were for sale and for purchase. It really is a super base. This kind of gold-level martial skill is enough to become the town's mastery of any clan in a large or medium-sized base, yet it can be casually sold here. Trauma lamented. After carefully scanning through the area, he did not find the blade martial skill he needed, so Chuemo shook his head and continued to wander around the mall. After shopping around, Chuemo also spent some yuan stones and purchased some favorite treasures. Ink Frost Chi. This was one of the medicinal ingredients for refining the purple gold creation Dan. Originally Chuemo had been begging for it when he was at the Jinling Big Base, but just didn't search for it. And now here it is found. The single price tag is 200 million lower-grade yuan stones. Chuemo had more than 500 billion lower-grade yuan stones on his body, and a mere 200 million was nothing more than a small amount of money, so he directly spent 5 billion yuan stones and swept away the ink frost chi within this store. Cold Crow Genpai. It was likewise one of the main materials needed to refine the purple gold creation pill. The price tag is 90 million lower-grade yuan stones. It's cheap. Chuemo directly purchased all of the Cold Crow Xian leaves. Absolute dust water. The price tag is 48 million lower-grade yuan stones. Bought. A round sweep. 2 hours later, Chuemo had spent more than 20 billion lower-grade yuan stones, and was actually on the verge of rounding up the materials needed to refine the purple gold creation pill. There was only one main medicine named Xian Heavy Frost Dew left to begin refining the violet gold creation pill. This lifted Chumo's spirits. Continue sweeping up through the Malit was just that. For the next half an hour, Chuemo strolled through quite a few stores in a row without finding any trace of Xian Heavy Frost Dew. These are all small stores. To get together the treasures I need requires complete luck. I should go straight to the biggest store where the goods are even more complete. There might be Xian Heavy Frost Dew in there, just so I can buy a few of the martial arts skills I need as well. Chumo thought darkly. It then headed straight for the upper floors of the mall. Within this mall, the higher up you go, the bigger the stores become, and the stronger the shopkeepers become. It is thought that on the top floor, there would be some large stores. Soon. Chummer had then arrived at the top floor. True Martial Court. It's the top floor of the mall, the biggest store. Looking at the store's signboard, Chuemo murmured, "Need to make treasures that can appear to my satisfaction. Step into it." A pretty-looking female sales clerk immediately walked in front of Chuemo and said with a smile on her face, "Lord Martial Artist, may I ask what you need?" Our True Martial Pavilion is the largest store in the Zhonghai Super Base, selling all sorts of items, whether it's martial arts, techniques, spirit weapons, ferocious beast materials, heavenly materials, and treasures. You can buy them all from us. This woman did not have any yuan power fluctuations on her body and appeared to be just an ordinary person. However, when facing Chuemo, there was no sense of trepidation. Chuemo looked around the room and realized that none of the other entertaining clerks were also martial artists, and among them, there was also a female clerk who was entertaining King Realm-level martial artists, and at this moment, she was actually open and relaxed without the slightest bit of nervousness. The reason why? On the one hand, it was because the laws within the Zhonghai Super Base were very strict, and no martial artist was allowed to easily strike out at ordinary people, otherwise, they would definitely be severely punished. And on the other hand, it was also because the True Martial Pavilion was the largest martial arts cultivation store within the Zhonghai Super Base, with several powerful war gods standing behind it, and it was even rumored that there was the shadow of the war god palace behind it. Therefore, even if there were only ordinary shopkeepers in the store, there was no fear of anyone causing trouble here. Looking around, Chuemo said, "There are many things I want to purchase. Do you have a list of items here?" "Yes," the shopgirl said. A foot-sized, tablet-like display was then fetched and handed over. Chumo then watched carefully. Sliding the screen, it was realized that the True Martial Pavilion had already been very meticulous in partitioning the various items, listing blades, martial arts, and techniques in different categories, and it even supported keyword searches. It's very convenient. Chuemo first casually tapped on the ranks of the blades. 8th ranked spirit weapon, True Fire Sword, 600 million top-grade yuan stones. Remarks, only top-grade yuan stones are supported for payment. 8th Order Spirit Weapon Cold Crow Blade, 570 million top-grade yuan stones. Remarks, only top-grade yuan stone payment is supported. 7th Order Spiritual Armor Luo Yin Smoke Blade, 110 million top-grade yuan stones. Note, only top-grade yuan stones are supported for payment. 7th Order Spirit Soldier Green Thunder Gun. There's actually an 8th Order Spirit weapon? Chu Mo's eyes widened when he took a look. In the Jinling Great Base, even 5th Order Spirit Soldiers were extremely rare, and within the Zhonghai Super Base, 8th Order Spirit Soldiers could actually appear. This was a step above even his Autumn Killing Blade. And then looking at the price, it even made Chu Mo couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air. An 8th rank spirit weapon actually required 600 million top-grade yuan stones, which would be equivalent to 6 trillion lower-grade yuan stones. Original. Chu Mo thought he was rich, but after seeing the spirit weapon, he realized that it was his illusion. With his entire fortune added up, he couldn't even buy an 8th Order spirit weapon, and even a 7th Order spirit weapon was still far inferior. But that's normal. 7th ranked spirit weapons, containing extraordinary spirituality, could bring high bonuses to martial artists. Even King Realm powerhouses couldn't afford them, only War God level powerhouses were qualified to own them, and it was normal for the price to be set at such a high level. This Autumn Killing Blade of mine is considered a top-notch existence in even the 7th ranked spirit weapons, so if I were to sell it, I guess I should be able to fetch a very high price. Chu Mo thought darkly. With this in mind, he then shook his head. The Autumn Killing Blade is currently the most powerful blade in his daily fight against the enemy, and Chu Mo will only sell it if he is stupid. Eliminating these stray thoughts, Chu Mo then opened the categorized list of martial arts and carefully selected them. Chapter 199, Transcendental Grade Martial Technique, Genetic Yuan Energy Body Forging Method. Just after opening the catalog, he saw densely packed martial arts appear before his eyes. The one that was auctioned at the forefront was actually not what Chu Mo thought was a gold-level martial skill, but a transcendent-level martial skill. What level is a transcendent grade martial skill? Chummer asked. The Transcendence grade is a martial art above the gold grade, belonging to the arcane grade, each of which is extremely precious, and only martial artists above the king grade are qualified to cultivate it. But because of the extreme difficulty in comprehending it, the vast majority of those who are able to cultivate it for initiation are all War God grade powerhouses. Currently within the entire Zhonghai Superbase, we, the True Martial Pavilion, are the only ones who sell transcendent grade martial arts. The pretty-looking shopgirl introduced herself with a smile. Upanishad-level martial arts? A king-level martial artist is only qualified to cultivate? It takes a War God level to initiate it? Hearing those words, Chu Mo couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. The fact that it was so difficult to cultivate meant that the power was also extremely strong. If he could have a transcendence-level blade technique and cultivate it to the point of entry, wouldn't this allow him to greatly increase his strength as well? Thinking so, Chu Mo immediately started searching as for whether he would be able to cultivate the transcendent-level blade technique. Chu Mo was not worried about that. He had now perfected his blade intent and comprehended his own blade Dao, coupled with his Morning Star level blade cultivation talent. If he couldn't even make it to the initiation, I'm afraid that there would be no one in the world who could cultivate the initiation. There weren't many transcendence grade martial arts, only 5, and only one belonging to the blade technique. 1000-star Flash Blade. According to the description on the Gongfu, a single slash would be able to manifest countless slashes of light, as if they were countless stars, crushing away. As long as one cultivates the initiation, it can bring a threefold increase in power to the martial artist, and if one is able to reach the point of extreme perfection, it is enough to increase the power by 20 times. I've decided it's this one. Chu Mo valued this book of swords at a glance. After looking at the price, it didn't require a top-grade yuan stone settlement, but it did require 280 billion lower-grade yuan stones. Extremely expensive. But it was still within Chu Mo's acceptable range. Subsequently, Chu Mo went back to looking for stances. The body techniques were not transcendent grade, so Chu Mo found the end and only chose a gold grade body technique called Running Thunder 9 Steps. The law itself requires martial artists to have a thunder attribute talent. Once the show can be around the illusion of a thunder domain, so that people cannot be caught. The speed is also extremely rapid, if cultivated to the full realm. The 9 steps of Running Thunder show enough to do incarnation of thunder, swift as light. The price was cheap, only 6 million lower grade yuan stones. Subsequently, Chu Mo looked at some other treasures, and even purposely searched for Xian Heavy Frost Dew with keyword search added directly to the cart as well. Soon, finding these 3 treasures had already satisfied Chu Mo, and he was ready to settle the bill at that moment. Only, just at this time, Chu Mo's gaze but suddenly swept onto a certain column and suddenly eked out softly. Where the eyes condensed was a body forging secret art. However, it was not the Yuan power body forging secret art that Chu Mo understood, but rather the top genetic Yuan energy meditation technique. Its well-known martial practitioners cultivate by absorbing Yuan power so as to achieve the effect of quenching the body and enhancing strength. And what was the genetic Yuan energy body forging method? Chu Mo tapped on this technique, and immediately the introduction of this technique appeared. After reading through it, Chu Mo instantly understood. Original. This genetic Yuan energy body forging method was actually a new type of cultivation method created by the top human martial artists after the great change in heaven and earth, and then summarizing the Yuan power body forging technique. Initially, when human martial artists practiced cultivation, they had to absorb Yuan power into their bodies in order to enhance their strength, which is why there were many Yuan power body forging methods. But later on, after the strength of human martial artists was raised, they realized that if they wanted to rely on this kind of body forging method to continue cultivating, they would need 100 years or even hundreds of years at every turn to raise a realm. And some scientists, after careful study, found that this way of absorbing Yuan Qi into the body and quenching it, though simple, was very crude. It was also extremely inefficient for the quenching of Yuan Qi. After the great change in the heavens and earth, Yuan Qi flooded the blue planet, the electronic equipment failed as a result, and the genes in countless living beings were altered. Humans who failed the genetic alteration died as a result, while those who adapted survived, and the best of them awakened their cultivation physique and talent. So exactly, the reason why humans can cultivate is not because of their physical bodies, but the process of genetic alteration. Because of this, when human beings are forging their bodies, why can't they optimize their genes by taking the initiative, so that the body's quenching efficiency of Yuan power can be increased, and subsequently, the speed of cultivation can be enhanced as well? With such doubts, countless scientists and human powerhouses continuously researched and eventually created the genetic Yuan energy forging method based on the Yuan power forging method. By optimizing the genes, the speed of absorbing and quenching Yuan Qi is enhanced, thus achieving the purpose of allowing martial artists to cultivate faster. And the results of the facts have proved that the scientists and the strongest human beings were right in their thinking. This top genetic Yuan energy body forging method, if cultivated, was able to be more than 10 times faster than the current top Yuan power body forging method on the market. Looking at the introduction of this genetic Yuan energy body forging method, Chu Mo couldn't help but have a look of shock on his face. If that's truly the case, wouldn't this genetic Yuan energy body forging method be even stronger than my green cloud Yuan power body forging secret art? Chu Mo subconsciously had some disbelief after all. This body forging secret art of his was the divine sword sect's untold secret, the treasure of the clan. But then, Chu Mo then snapped out of it abruptly. In the martial arts path, it wasn't as if the ancient ones were precious and rare. The development of martial arts was changing rapidly, and later martial artists stood on the shoulders of their predecessors, constantly pushing forward, improving and optimizing the techniques created by their predecessors, which would naturally lead to smoother and smoother cultivation. And the increases brought about by the techniques would become more and more powerful. As for the green cloud Yuan power body forging secret art that Chu Mo practiced, although it was indeed strong, it was ultimately already an ancient secret art, and this secret art could only be cultivated up to the cave Heavenly King realm. Although in the era of the Divine Sword sect it was an unspoken secret and the treasure of the clan, when placed here, it would only be relegated to the middle of the pack. After figuring this out, a flash of excitement immediately appeared on Chumo's face. This genetic Yuan energy body forging method is 10 times faster than the top Yuan power body forging method on the market today. If I were to cultivate as well, I might be able to get a several-fold increase in my cultivation speed as well. Maybe in just a few years, I'll be able to cultivate to the 8 desolate exalted extreme. And with the addition of many genius earth treasures and ferocious beast blood, it might only take a year or 2. Think about it. Even Chumo couldn't help but stutter his breath. The mind was even making a decision in this instant. Buy. Looked at the price. It didn't need to be settled with top-grade Yuan stones, but it did require 200 billion lower-grade Yuan stones. If you added the 1,000-star flash blade and the 9 steps of the running thunder, you would need 540 billion lower-grade Yuan stones. The total number of Yuan stones on Chumo's body added up, and only managed to get to about 500 billion, and there was still a gap of 40 billion. Think about it. Chumo said to the shopgirl, "Hello, if I pay with top-grade Yuan stones and middle-grade Yuan stones, are there any discounts?" "Hello, in our store, if you buy a lower-grade Yuan stone item with medium-grade Yuan stones, you can get an additional 20% discount, while if you use top-grade Yuan stones, you can get a 50% discount," the shopgirl said with a smile. Hearing those words, Chumo silently did some calculations in his mind. He had the 3 billion middle-grade Yuan stones sent by Jiang Yueyao on him, plus all of his own 400 million pieces of middle-grade Yuan stones from the veins that had been opened from the mines, for a total of about 3,400 million middle-grade Yuan stones, and according to the additional 20% discount he had received, it would be approximately equal to being the purchasing power of 400 billion lower-grade Yuan stones, and he still had 100 billion or so lower-grade Yuan stones left on him. Together, that's 500 billion. And Chumo still had close to 5 million pieces of top-grade Yuan stones on him, which was approximately equal to the purchasing power of 750 million lower-grade Yuan stones. Together, that's enough for payment. Thinking of this, Chumo said, "I would like to purchase the Transcendence Grade Blade Technique Martial Skill 1000-Star Flashing Blade and the Gold Grade Body Technique Martial Skill Running Thunder 9 Steps, plus this top genetic Yuan Energy Forging Technique, as well as these items, so how much will it cost you to settle the bill?" The shopgirl did some calculations and said, "A total of 5,400 trillion lower-grade Yuan stones are needed." So Chumo took out his own Yuan stones to make the payment because there were medium-grade Yuan stones and top-grade Yuan stones. The shopgirl spent some time calculating and finally settled the bill clearly. To the end. Chumo only had less than 2 million top-grade Yuan stones left on him. Spending close to $550 billion in one go, even Chumo was a little heartbroken. But thinking about these martial arts and techniques that he had obtained, he was slightly comforted in his heart. "Hello, Martial Lord, this is the item you have purchased. If you have any questions, please contact us at." In addition, given that you have spent over 500 billion Yuan stones in this store, you have been given a junior membership card by this store, and you can enjoy a 95% discount on future purchases. The shopgirl handed a storage bag to Chumo and said happily. Chumo has spent more than 500 billion Yuan stones, which also allows her to get a fun pavilion commission. Although the percentage of commission was particularly low, it was very satisfying for her. "Thanks a lot." Chumo received the storage bag and after scanning it to confirm that the things were correct, he left the place straight away. Didn't linger too long. Leaving the mall directly, he took a Yuanli floating car and quickly returned to the Aurora neighborhood. Villa 0264. First, he released both the Sky Rock and the treasure hunting bird, letting them play freely in the courtyard. Chumo then directly entered the quiet room. Next, closed-door cultivation. Initiate all the newly acquired feats, and then wait for the refresh of the gathering technique to get your hands on the time talent from the empty green beast. Chapter 200 Participating in Martial Techniques, Gathering Medium Time Talents. In the middle of the quiet room, Chu Mo sat cross-legged while 3 jade books were placed in front of him. Firstly, he picked up the jade book that contained the Transcendence Grade Blade Technique martial skill, and his spiritual power probed into it and began to perceive it. In the next moment, he only felt a boing sound, as if some kind of film had shattered. Before Chu Mo could think about it in detail, he abruptly saw that he seemed to have entered a marvelous world, where a man in a black robe with a magnificent figure stood tall in the starry sky. An enemy rushed towards him, with an astonishing momentum. Along the way even the stars swayed, while the man remained motionless. The only thing in his hand was the sword, which was humming softly. In the next moment, when the buzzing sound of the knife in his hand had reached its extreme, the man slashed out violently, and the powerful light of the knife rose up, transforming into countless bright stars, suppressing towards the enemy, and annihilating him with a bang. And I don't know how long it took. Chu Mo woke up from within this strange space. At the same time, a stream of information flooded into his mind. It was the secrets and axioms of the 1,000-star flashing blade technique. It's truly worthy of being a transcendence grade technique. Its power is far more terrifying than a gold grade martial skill. Nothing but. It's also extremely difficult to comprehend it thoroughly. Recalling the mysteries and complexities of this blade martial art in his mind, Chu Mo secretly thought. As a technique that only martial artists above the king level were qualified to cultivate, the only way to cultivate it to the beginning was to comprehend the axioms. This one alone could stop many martial artists. But that obviously didn't stop Tremor. Now that he had perfected his blade intent and had also comprehended the blade Dao realm, he naturally possessed the qualifications to cultivate a transcendent level technique. Begin to enlighten. Thinking so, Chu Mo then concentrated, projecting the many mysteries of this Gong method in his mind, and practiced with all his might. The transcendence level Gong methods were very profound. Even Chu Mo had spent a full 3 days before he could cultivate it, then took another 6 days to cultivate it to the minor accomplishment realm. At this point, it was no longer possible to continue to improve by shutting down and comprehending. It was necessary to engage in real actual combat. Therefore, Chu Mo did not continue to comprehend, but began to comprehend the body technique Running Thunder 9 steps. 1 day later, Chu Mo took the 9 steps of Running Thunder into his hands. 3 days later, the 9 steps of Running Thunder was accomplished in a small way. 8 days later, the 9 steps of Running Thunder was accomplished. This day, in the middle of the courtyard, Chu Mo was testing his stance. Running Thunder 9 steps. Chu Mo ran his body technique, and the indestructible thunder body immediately ran out, transforming into a thunder field around him, while his body was also steeply hidden in this thunder field, moving around, causing people to be unable to discern where exactly his figure was subsequently. Chu Mo's footsteps were pointing in succession, and after 9 steps in a row, his figure flashed abruptly, as if he had transformed into a ray of lightning, and disappeared from the spot in an instant. The speed was so fast that Chu Mo didn't even react for a moment. After experimenting for 2 hours in a row, Chu Mo finally adapted to the speed of the Running Thunder 9-step stance. Gold-level body martial arts are really strong. Just at the grand completion realm, it's already more than 5 times faster than my previous perfection-level shadowless illusionary steps. If I can cultivate the 9 steps of Running Thunder to the point of perfection, I'm afraid that my speed will be no better than even the peak of the King realm. Standing in the courtyard, Chu Mo murmured. There was also an involuntary smile on his face. After more than 20 days of closed-door cultivation, he had mastered all of the Transcendence Grade Blade Technique martial skills and Gold Grade Body Technique martial skills, which had caused his strength to grow completely. And next, it's the time talent that got the empty green beast's body. Just yesterday, he refreshed his gathering skills. A new round of collection can be made. So Chu Mo directly came into the courtyard and opened all of the villa's formations. Then from within his carry-on space, he took out the corpse of the empty green beast. Looking at the corpse of this huge-bodied ferocious beast, Chu Mo's eyes revealed a flash of anticipation. The spatial talent that he had mastered in the beginning had played a crucial role in Chumo's martial path. Helped him out of danger several times, and even backfired. And how could the time talent, which was also one of the two supreme talents, help him? Thinking so, Chumo directly stretched out his hand and aimed it at the corpse, murmuring, "Gather." The moment the words fell, it was then that Chumo's hand suddenly surfaced with a palm generated by golden light, and he grabbed towards the corpse of the empty green beast. When he came back again, there was already a black and white distinct orb in his golden palm. Capture successful. Gaining a medium time talent. May I ask if it's fused? It really is a time gift. Seeing this scene, a flash of excitement appeared in Chumo's eyes without the slightest hesitation. He directly murmured, "Fusion." Boom. Along with the fall of Chumo's words, the time talent in his hand directly shattered with a loud bang, transforming into countless tiny points of light that surged into all parts of Chumo's body. In an instant, a pain and tingling sensation that was difficult to describe in words surged through his entire body. Trummer could feel it. At the time of the fusion of the gifts of time, the countless genes and cells in his body were madly being reborn and dying, and the vitality contained in his muscles was constantly flowing and replenishing. Countless mysteries about time flowed through his mind. There were even some laws of time that escaped, causing the flow of time around Chumo to be different from the other areas, with an out-of-place rustiness. As for Chumo, he was even in this time-varying environment. His body seemed to be all illusory at times and solid at others. This is the result of enduring the forces of time. Under such an influence, the intense pain became secondary. Half an hour later, the fusion was finally complete. Chumo instantly dropped to the ground, gasping for air, as if he had been rescued after drowning and wanted to greedily breathe fresh air. A few moments later, he recovered slightly. Be the first to check your information. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendent Level Indestructible Thunder Body, Transcendent Level Supreme Blade Body. Talents, Morning Star Level Sword Cultivation Talent, Morning Star Level Wind Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Metallic Talent, Transcendent Level Wood Attribute Talent, Higher Spatial Talent, Higher Water Attribute Talent, Higher Darkness Attribute Talent, Medium Time Talent, Medium Pupil Talent. Sure enough, the fusion worked. Watching the medium time talent appear in the talent list, Chumo then let out a long sigh of relief immediately after. A flash of excitement then appeared on his face. After mastering the gift of time, the ability of this gift also appeared in his mind. The medium time talent grants Chummer 3 abilities: time perception, time acceleration, time delay. The first was the time perception ability, which enabled Chumo to keenly perceive the passage of time regardless of the situation he was in, whether it was speeding up or slowing down, he could instantly notice it more even. The time perception ability also allowed Chumo to clearly see the mysteries of time. And time accelerates. As the name suggests, it is possible to construct a time domain field in an area to accelerate time, while time retardation works in the opposite direction. If it was used in combat, it could completely delay the time in the opponent's area, which was tantamount to slowing down the enemy's overall speed, making their thinking and reaction speed drop. Time acceleration, on the other hand, was able to enhance Chumo's reaction speed and thinking ability. Trummer applied a bit of it. Discovered the medium time talent, which allows him to speed up time to a maximum of 4 times, and retardation is also 4 times sure. That's just the ideal. The time domain field was very fragile, and if a being within this area tried to resist, it would easily shatter. Therefore, it is difficult to utilize the quadruple retardation effect against the enemy. But even so, if one suddenly casts time delay when the opponent is not expecting it, it is also enough to catch the enemy off guard and thus gain the upper hand. In a nutshell, if utilized properly, it could completely allow the time talent to explode with an extremely terrifying power. In addition to applying it to combat, The time talent can also have an extremely powerful effect in daily cultivation. The medium time talent can give me a fourfold time acceleration effect, which means that if I set up a time domain field around my body, 1 day of cultivation will be equal to 4 days of cultivation for others. This is almost tantamount to a fourfold increase in cultivation speed. Doesn't this mean that originally I needed 100 years to cultivate to the Zuni extreme, but now I only need 20 years to accomplish it? Think about it. A flash of excitement steeply appeared on Chumo's face. The time talent alone had shortened his cultivation speed significantly. Not to mention, Chumo still had the genetic Yuan energy body forging method that he hadn't cultivated. If he were to cultivate it as well, it would similarly increase his cultivation speed. Under the superposition of the two phases, how terrifyingly could his cultivation speed increase too? Enlightenment. Read this. Chumo immediately couldn't wait to participate in the Jin Yuan energy body forging method with a thought. The information of this gong method surfaced in his mind, and then Chumo sat down on his knees, and according to the requirements of the gong method, he assumed the posture of 5 hearts facing the sky, and slowly absorbed the heaven and earth vital energy around him. One time, countless Yuan qi poured in along the pores around his body, but it didn't enter his body directly, but was captured and absorbed by the countless tiny cells within his skin. Pfft. Chumo was able to feel that every time the cells and genes in his entire body, it was as if a volcano was erupting, and there was an unprecedented activity. Countless cells were metabolizing crazily, and the genes were reorganizing and expanding, crazily devouring Yuan qi, thus continuously enhancing his physical body's strength. 1 hour later, Chumo steeply opened his eyes. The genetic Yuan energy body forging method is really effective. The speed of absorbing Yuan qi to quench my body is about 5 times faster than when I cultivate the green cloud Yuan power forging mysterious art. If I add the fourfold acceleration effect brought about by the time talent, this means that I have increased my cultivation speed by a full 20 times. Originally, it took 100 years to cultivate to the 8 desolate exalted extreme, but now it only takes less than 5 years to accomplish it. Together with the increase of the many heavenly materials and treasures of the fierce beast's blood, this time can definitely be reduced again, and ultimately, it may only take 2 or 3 years or even 1 or 2 years. Amidst the murmuring, a flash of excitement appeared in Chumo's eyes.